and welcome to our December kit tutorial where we are going to be doing a hanging birdhouse with the theme this month being new creation. So we're going to start by painting our main block first, and the color that I'm going to be using is a sage. This is a Hello Hobby color. It's kind of like a moss, even though it says it's sage. It's kind of a mossy color. So we're going to be doing the crackle technique on this. To do that, I am going to do the color that I want to show through the crackle first, which will be the sage. So we're going to do a couple coats of that on the back. And then there's going to be a couple other things we'll be painting with sage as well. So, which will be the little Eve piece here. So we're going to go ahead and do these two pieces, and we'll put one coat on each one. Now we are going to want to go ahead, and I did this ahead of time, but you are going to want to paint your sides and your back as well. You don't need to worry about painting the roofing parts here. We're actually going to be gluing that, but I am going to go ahead and take this time now to do the bottom because we will see that. All right, we're going to put that aside and let it dry. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to paint our beads. And I'm going to show you a quick little hack I have to painting beads. And you're going to need just any type of Tupperware container. This is an old Cool Whip container. And you're going to take the color that you want to use. So we're going to put just a little blob in here, just a little dot. We don't need a whole lot of paint to do this. So just kind of get a drop in there. And that is plenty. And then we're going to add a little bit of water just to thin it out a little bit. Then take your popsicle stick and we're just going to thin it out. We just want to mix it up a little bit in here. Okay, once you got all the lumps out, you're good. And from here, we're going to go ahead and drop our 6 beads in. And then what we can do is just roll them around in here. Make sure that's 6. Until they're nice and covered. And these look good and covered, so now we're going to go ahead and get them out. And I'm just going to use the little beater to kind of scoop them. And then we're just going to put them on our lid here so that they can dry. So just kind of fish them out. If you can stand them up, that'll be best. And then we'll let those dry while we are working on the rest of it. All right, so we can put all that aside. The next thing that we want to do is we're going to go ahead and get our roof and our beads prepared. And for this design, I'm going to be doing the antique wax on the birds as well as the roof tile. Now the skinny part is going to go on the top. So we're going to do the front and the back just to make sure we have everything covered. And we're going to do one side of the bird. Now for the birds, the ones with the 2 holes are going to go in the top, and the one with the 1 hole is going to go in the bottom. So if you want all of your birds facing one direction, you're going to want to do whichever side, or you can do both sides. I only did one side of these. I am going to go ahead and do both sides just because I'm not sure which direction I'm going to be putting them now. So we're just going to take a little bit of our wax on here. And because we're doing the whole bird, we don't have to really, usually I would say damp it off first, but we're covering quite a big surface area. So we'll go ahead and just do the whole bird. And then I do like to do the wax on a paper plate or some other type of surface. You can tell I just keep this plate because the wax tends to like to travel, and we don't want it getting on anything else, especially since we're going to be working with whites and those types of things. Once you get it covered, you're going to take your scrap rag, and we're just going to go around the edges and just get off any excess. Again, so that we don't get that wax all over everything. And then I'm going to go ahead and proceed and doing the backs of the other two as well as my roof tile. Okay, we've got everything covered pretty well. So we're gonna go ahead and, I noticed I forgot, don't forget your bottoms and your tops because those will show. And we're gonna go ahead and just make sure everything's wiped off. Now be careful with these ones, they are raw wood, they can give you slivers. So just kind of dab off any excess that you want. All right, we've got our tiles done. You do want to make sure you get any of the wax off of your hands. We're going to be working with white next, and we want to make sure that we're not getting any of that wax transferred onto anything else. So I am going to hit my paint here just a little bit. I see where it's a little bit wet right there. And we're going to be doing the Crackle method on this. So to use the Crackle method, you're going to need your second color of paint, which I'm going to be using a plaster. And this is from Waverly. And you're going to need some school glue. So this is just Elmer's. I have had people ask me if you could use any white school glue. You should be able to. I've only used the Elmer's, but it shouldn't matter as long as it's just the liquid glue. So what I like to do for this is go ahead and put the glue on some kind of just extra piece of plastic or something. This is just the insert from our transfer tool or our transfers. And then you're going to take it, and you need a pretty generous amount. And what we're going to do is we are going to brush this on, but we're going to leave it on kind of thick, okay? So just kind of dab, and don't overwork it. You're just kind of dragging it on there, leaving it kind of lumpy and bumpy. That's what we're kind of looking at. So just keep, you want to work kind of quickly on this because it is going to be drying as we move, which is what we want, but we don't want it to dry too quickly. So again, just kind of keep chunking it on there. And the thicker parts of the glue is where you're going to have more of the Crackle. And I do need to grab just a little bit more. And what I found the best success is what I call the 5-minute rule. So again, we're not going to overwork this. I'm going to just touch up these spots up here. And then we are going to set our timer for 5 minutes. Now we'll keep working on other things while this is going off, but just set your timer. I'll probably do 4 minutes and 30 seconds now because I have been talking, but you just want it to basically end out 5 minutes. So we'll set that. We're going to just put this aside and let it set. It's going to be a little bit tacky when we put on our next layer, which is what we want. So I'm just going to scoop up my glue, and I'm going to be using the same paintbrush. So I'm going to clean it real quickly while we're waiting. And we can go ahead and start doing painting our mouth of our jar next. So I'm just going to put that aside. As well as that. And we will get our wide mouth jar. So for the little bird door, we're going to be using the same color that I'm going to be using over the green here in a minute when it dries. So we're just going to take our white chalk paint. Again, this is plaster, but it's like an off-white. And we're just going to go ahead and paint the whole outside of this. If you want to do the inside, you can as well. If you get really good, you can like get it on your hands like this, but we're just going to give it, you just want enough coat to cover it. Make sure you get the lips and the top. And then don't forget to go on the front of it here. All right, so we have a pretty decent cover. We're gonna go over it with the antiquing, so it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but you just want enough covering on there so that your antique has something to actually sit on. Oops, I closed that and we're gonna need it. Now, the other option you have with the birds, we have 2 minutes left here. The other option you have with the birds is to actually do a decoupage one. If you do want to do one of the birds as decoupage, then you will need to paint it. So again, figure out which way you want your birds to go. I think I'm going to do this way. So I'm going to paint this middle one white. Now I know we already antiqued it, not a big deal. We're going to go ahead and paint it white so that we can decoupage it. I think I'm going to use the hymnal on it. So we'll just do a quick coat of white while we have the white on our brush. Now if you... All right, and now to make sure that you have your edges clean, you can just take your scrap rag here, just get a little corner of it wet, and then you can go through here and just clean up any of the areas on the outside where you got the white paint. Just to give it a little bit of a cleaner look. If you do this right when the paint is wet, it should just come right off. All right, we're gonna put that little guy over here to dry. And our timer is about up for our house. So you can see this part right here is actually dry already, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and delete the timer and we're going to go ahead and go in. So you're going to, again, want to be a little bit generous with the paint, and then you're going to come in and you're going to drag it down. Now the key is not to overwork it. So you kind of just drag it and just let it be. Now you can see that part I dragged the glue a little bit. You should have enough paint on your brush that you're not dragging the glue. So if you're dragging the glue a little bit, add more paint. And again, you're going to want to work quickly because this glue is drying. So again, just keep grabbing blobs, working it down. Don't overwork what you already did. Just add more paint and keep working down. I think the hardest part is not overworking it or going back and working it. I drug that part. So again, make sure your paintbrush has enough paint on it that it's kind of just glossing over. All right, we're gonna leave it like that. Now we're gonna go ahead and hit it with the heat gun and you will see the crackle start to show up. So there you can see we have some really nice crackle. Now, if you're going to decoupage, we can decoupage over this right away. If you're using the rub-on transfers and you're doing the crackle, you're going to want to let this cure, preferably overnight. This one has been sitting for 2 nights that I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to do the transfers on this one. It's nice and dry. I did already apply the roof tiles on this one, so I'll show you how to do that. But we're going to let this sit for a little bit so that it does have some additional time to dry. And then we're going to go through and start doing some of the decoupage on here. And then that'll give that time for the decoupage to dry there. So what we're going to need for that is our Mod Podge and whichever napkin you're going to be using. So for me, I'm going to be using the hymnal on this little birdie here. And then I'll be using this one, He Makes All Things New, when we do the actual house. So we'll go ahead and start with this one. Before we get the napkin cut out, what we want to do is go ahead and put our Mod Podge on our bird, and we're going to want to turn our iron on. We'll be using the iron on decoupage method. So we'll go ahead and turn that on so that it's getting hot. And we will prepare our little bird. So we're just going to take and just put a little bit of Mod Podge right on him. And we just need a thin coat of Mod Podge. Just make sure you get all the way to the edges so that we don't have any lifting. And don't forget the little beak. And we will let that dry for a moment. While it's drying, we can go ahead and get our napkin cut out. Now, if you're new to our napkins, you will notice that we just have the print on the front of the napkin. That is because we print the napkins here in the United States, and we only have the ability to print on the front at this time. But it allows us to support US print shops. So it is a win-win for us and for you, because we can do our custom designs in smaller quantities and release more napkins each year. Okay, so we only need the top portion of, or the top ply. These napkins are 3 ply, so you're going to want to get just the top ply. And you'll know when you get it because there'll be some of the ink left on the other side, and your design should be pretty much transparent. So we'll just keep working this around the outside. You could also kind of cut out the shape or cut it smaller. I just chose to do the whole napkin. And then we'll want to figure out where you want the wording or what all you want showing on the bird, because this title is not going to show all the way down unless we put it right here. And so we're going to just kind of want to get an idea of where we want everything. I think I kind of want the Jesus part. I'm going to kind of put it up here so that I've got the first little verse here all caught. And then we're going to need our parchment paper. So we'll put that over the top, and then we go ahead and just iron over the design. And this just allows us to get a nice flat decoupage look. You don't have to worry about any wrinkles or anything. Again, only use this one if that's the look that you're looking for. If you want a nice flat and you don't want any wrinkles. If you do want wrinkles or more textured, you can definitely use the wet decoupage method as well. All right, first we want to make sure that we got, oh, looks, it didn't stick to his little beak. So we always want to make sure that we do get all of it. So I'm going to come back through here, add a little bit more Mod Podge to his beak, and then we're just going to hit it again. So we don't want any lifting. But that's why we check. It happens to everybody. All right, so I'm going to come along the edge here and just make sure the rest of this is caught good. All right, his beak is down now. I'm also going to take this point, I'm going to just take a pencil and I'm going to pop through these 2 holes because we do need these holes. You want to go through the front. So that you can use so that the string is going to go through. We don't see those extra pieces of paper coming in from the back. So then we're going to take our sanding tool. You could use a fingernail file. If you don't have one of these finger sanders, you could also use a sanding block. And we're just going to lightly go around the edges, and you just want enough pressure to break off the paper. And you'll just work all the way around. There we go. So we have our little bird. Now we're also going to get out our antique wax again. And there should be enough already on the brush for this, so we don't need to add any more to it. We're going to go ahead and just hit the outside of our little birdhouse hole here. So I kind of just want to catch all the little, what are these, little edging, little grippers? I don't know what you call those things. Basically, we're just kind of bringing out the detail a little bit so that you can see it more. Making it a little more rustic. Go ahead and go around the front of it a little bit. There we go. Just so it looks a little bit more antiqued or aged. And then we're also going to do a little bit on the edge of the bird. So I'm just going to come around the outside of the bird and I'm just dragging it. Just kind of dragging the edges. So it's going to kind of soften our decoupage a little bit. So it looks a little, it's going to blend in a little bit better with our ones that are just completely antiqued. There we go. Again, always get your rag and take off any extra. Make sure you're kind of pushing it to the outside. Perfect, so we have our little bird done. Now we are leaving our iron on because we're going to want to get our little house. We're going to want to do this next. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach my roof tiles so that they can start drying. So I am using a 3-in-1 quick glue, and I'm just going to put that on the back. Just kind of go into the little scallops here. We're going to do one side at a time. So I'm going to line it up where I think it needs to be, and then I'm going to flip the house on its edge so that I know that it is lined up with the edge of the wood. And then we're going to do the same thing with the second one. Line it up and line it up. All right, we're going to let that go aside, and now we got to figure out our napkin. So I'm going to take my Frixion pen, and this is going to allow the ink that I'm drawing to disappear when we iron it, so I can go ahead and do it right on the front. But I do want my little birdie in here, so I'm just going to take the pen and I'm going to go around the outside of my jar lid here, and that's going to leave the area that we know we need to decoupage edge. So I'm also going to cut out just the section of the napkin that we're working with, so I don't have a whole bunch of napkin floating around here. Now I'm going to decoupage edge the part that I want. So to do that, we're just going to take a small paintbrush, dip it in some water, and we're just going to come along the outside here and we're going to tear. And I kind of want to be just as close to that line as I can. Can be a little bit inside, would probably be ideal because we did draw the line on the outside. And don't worry about if you're using the Frixion pen, the line is actually going to disappear when we iron. If you're using a regular pen, you could do it on the outside or do it from the back so that you don't have to worry about it. You could also just use a pencil. But basically, we're just going to go right on this line with our water, and then we're just going to tear it. Now we are going to need to separate these layers. I generally have an easier time separating them when I do a decoupage edge. If you are worried about it, we can leave some of this and start separating the napkin before we get all the way around. So I can see right here, it's already separating. So I can go ahead and go all the way around without leaving a space to tear it. All right, so we've got our little circle there. Now I'm also going to need to figure out where to put, we're still going to separate this, but I've got to figure out where to put the Mod Podge on top so we can go ahead and place our little design. So I think I'm going to go probably right about here. So again, I'm going to take my Frixion pen and I'm just going to go around the inside. Again, you can use a pencil for this. All right, so I just went around the inside, mostly dragging. Because this is still a little bit soft, I can see where the line kind of pressed. But I'm going to want to take and I'm going to fill the circle with the Mod Podge. So I want to go all the way up to where the circle is. And then if you got too much, just go ahead and scrape it off. And then we can hit this with the heat gun again. Once that's dry, we can go ahead and put our design on here. Now you are going to want to make sure that your wording is straight. I feel like we're pretty good there. All right, we're going to come in with our parchment paper again, and we're just going to go over the top with the iron. Now we're going to switch over to doing the rub-on transfer one. So again, we're going to want to get an idea of where we're going to put the transfer, these butterflies. So what I'm going to do is, because this is all one design, I'm going to be using this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that one out. We can just rough cut it because only where the ink is going to transfer. Everything else will be clear. Now I'm going to want to get an idea of where I'm going to put it, because wherever this lands is where we're going to put our circle. So use your mat to kind of make sure everything is straight. I think I am going to go kind of in that same, maybe we'll do this one a little higher. We'll do this one a little higher. Now, again, this one has cured overnight. I would at least cure it overnight. This one's actually cured 2 nights. But I also want to keep in mind because this one is a lot of kind of intricate details, that wherever I'm placing it, I kind of want it to have more of a surface. Like if it's all super cracky, I'm going to have to work all of the words into those cracks. Now this one also helps a little bit because you have these top and bottom that's going to help us keep the design straight. So we're going to peel off the backing. We've got our transfer tool here, and then we're going to line it up. And again, just use your lines and your mat. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and work it in. So we're going to go all over it at least a couple times. And then we're going to flip the tool around and we'll use the back part to really get all of the little lines and detail on this one. This is more of an intricate rub-on transfer design, so this one may take a little bit more patience because we've got a bunch of little things that we need to work into our paint here. So we're just going to catch the edge, and we're going to take the little more detailed part, and we're just going to go over each of the different design elements over the darker color. So again, just keep going. You pick one side. And then just keep working back and forth. Take your time. And there we go. We have our full transfer design on there. Now, if you want to seal it, you can do a spray sealer, or you could paint it with Mod Podge. Mine is a little bit glossy, so I don't want to paint it. I'd have to paint the whole thing or the gloss is going to show. So I usually like to do an acrylic spray to seal it. And that's on Decoupage and on rub-on transfers. Same for both. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Actually, before we do this, we're going to go ahead and put the back on before we finish the front. So that way we're not having to add all of those things. So basically what I did to figure out these 2 holes is I used a ruler and just make sure it's lined up on even side. There's a quarter here and a quarter here. So I've got the corners of the roof lined up with the quarter. Then you're going to go ahead and get your hook that you need, line it up there, then just take your pencil and you're going to draw in the 2 places that you need to do the screw. And then we're going to be using some power tools today. You can definitely do this by hand, but it's probably easier to do it this way. So we'll just get it lined up with our hole and we'll go ahead and screw it in. So we got one side in. Just make sure you're straight. There we go. Now the back is on before we start messing with everything on the front, so that part is ready. We're going to do the ring part last, so I'm going to put that aside. Let's go back over. Well, actually, I think we're ready to go ahead and put on our roof tiles now. So our roof tiles, we're going to glue right to the top here. So I'm going to get the 2 that I have prepared for this one already. And we are going to want to glue them on right on here, and we're going to put it down while we're doing it so that we can get the roof tiles on here. All right, so we're going to want to glue the roof tiles right on here. So to do that, we're going to stick the glue right on our edge here. You can be pretty generous with it. Then we're going to take our roof tiles, and you want the skinny part at the front. So we're going to attach the one and we're going to attach the other. And I did overlap the top here. So one is a little bit further down than the other one. And then just make sure you have it lined up against the back. I'm not going to lay it down because we have the hook on here, so you won't be able to exactly line it up evenly. All right, we've got those on there pretty good. And so we can let this part dry, and now we need to get ready and do our beads. So here's some that I already have finished for the other house. We actually did a decoupage middle one, but some other options that you can do are drawing these little leaf designs on the actual birds. And I did that with paint markers. So we can do a couple on this one just to kind of show you how I did it, and then I'll show you how to go ahead and string your birds. You always want to start your paint pen with on a piece of paper so that it doesn't kind of like blob out on you. So I just kind of make sure that it's going a little bit. And then for this one, you can just make different leaves. So one of the leaves that I did is just kind of little heart ones. So I just draw the line up, and then you just kind of make little hearts with the actual paint pen. So just like that. And then I made another little strand kind of going in the opposite direction. Actually, I'm just going to go kind of up this way and down. And for this one, I just kind of made these little like leaves like this. So I just did like a straight edge. Sometimes it's easier if you do all the straight edges first. And then I do the leaf underneath. So it kind of just goes down, almost like a little lemon. So that'll give that one some detail, and then we should probably do some details on the top one. There we go. So now we have a little bit of details on each one. And we're going to put those aside and let them dry. I think we're ready to check on our beads. So our beads look like they're pretty dry here. Now you will see this side right here is the one where it was stuck to the bottom. So we'll want to make sure that that stays on the bottom so we don't see it when we're doing the designs. Now you're going to take your jute, and I've cut these to 13 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to start stringing the string on our birds first, and then we'll add our beads. So we're going to need string going off the top and the bottom of each one. So I'm going to start with the middle here. And you're just going to push one through. And then if you hold it down, you can get the other one through there. Sometimes you can get them through both at the same time if you're lucky. All right, if it doesn't work, then just clip it so that you have a cleaner end. We're just looping them through and pulling it tight. Now I'm going to do that to all the holes right now. Once you have your birds all looped, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the beads to each one. So we're going to want a bead on each end. So again, make sure pay attention to where your paint, if your paint came off a little bit there. And this one I'm actually going to straighten it a little bit because we want our tails the same length. So we'll put our bead on our beader, stick our string through, and then pull it through. All right, yucky end on the end. I had to figure out which way to put that. There we go. So if you have like a not cute end, put that one on the top if you're doing the top, put it on the bottom if you're doing the bottom. Takes a minute to get the hang of which direction to put it, but if you put it on wrong, just go ahead and take it off, slide it on again, no big deal. And then the top one we're actually going to do 2. All right, now at the very top we can tie a knot because this is the one we're actually going to staple to the back of our birdhouse. So we'll go ahead and tie a knot there, trim it up. Now this one is done. So now we're going to start stringing them. So we have the tails from this one and the tails from this one. What we're going to do is we're going to tie them together and then in a double knot, and then we're going to use the extra to tie a bow. So kind of get an idea of how much string that you're going to need for a bow. I think this is a pretty good amount here. And then you're going to use that to tie. And don't worry if one's like a little longer than the other. You can adjust and then we can trim any of the ends so that it matches better. All right, so we did that in the first section, and now we're going to want to do that in the second section as well. So again, push your beads all the way to the top and the bottom. Grab your tails, Figure out where you want your knot. Double knot it, and then use your tails to make your bows. And then just adjust your bow as needed. You're gonna have one side that's a little bit longer because it didn't go around the knot, and you just trim it off there. So now you have your little birds that are gonna hang from your birdhouse. So again, use your measurement so that you get it in the center. And generally one staple will do great. All right, we're ready to go ahead and put on our little jar ring here. So again, you can use the 3-in-1 here that I'm using here. We are going to want to get it all the way around the jar lid. I feel like this is a little bit easier to work with than the E6000 because it's a little thinner. I'm just running along the inside of our ring. Now we're going to go ahead and place it right over our design. Give it a good push there. And then I'm going to take some more of this jute and I'm actually going to run it around the outside. So we'll kind of get an idea of how much we need here. I'm going to cut a little extra. And I kind of like just to tack it in a few places. I don't run the glue all the way around. You can just trim where your tails meet. And then, since we do have a little room down here, I'm going to do a little jute and raffia bow. And then we can just place that bow right there at the bottom. And there we have it. A little bit hard to see the whole thing, but here's our cute little birdhouse. There's so many different ways that you can do it. Crackle, no crackle, bow, no bow, all the different ways you can do the birds. And I can't wait to see what you do with yours. So make sure that if you finish your project and share on social, don't forget to tag at Christian Craft Paper so we can see what you made. And thanks again for joining me for another fun tutorial. Until next time, happy crafting!